Hi everyone, George here. And tonight I wanted to just sit down for a moment, just a few minutes, and chat with you about a very special movie. I want to talk to you about the film A Face in the Crowd, directed by Elia Kazan. The film was made back in 1957, and it has made certain analysis or speculations or statements about human nature and Western society or American society that has more or less come true. So I just want to sit down for a moment and discuss this film with you. And real quick, I am going to spoil this movie left and right, up and down. So if you have not seen this movie, and I highly recommend you see this movie, shut off this video right now and go watch it. Then come back, sit down, sit in front of me, and let's have a chat about this film.
Don't be up!
The film stars Andy Griffith. This was actually his first film role, and this is Andy Griffith before The Andy Griffith Show. This is obviously before, way before his other famous role in Matlock, the series Matlock. And when I saw this movie, obviously I saw this movie years later. I didn't see it live in 1957 because I wasn't born yet. I never saw Andy Griffith like that before. I saw him in the Andy Griffith Show, and I saw him in Matlock, and they were very different personalities compared to this troubled figure that is in this film that he plays. He plays Lonesome Rhodes, by the way. That's the lead character in this movie. The film is also starring Patricia Neal. You may have recognized her from the sci-fi classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, and the film HUD, where she won an Academy Award for her performance. Also in this movie is Anthony Franciosa. He was in Dario Argento's film Tenebrae. If you're a horror movie fan, you might get excited by that. He was also in the film Career, where he won a Golden Globe. Also, Lee Remick is in this movie as well. I believe this was her first role. She was the mom in The Omen, and she was also in Anatomy of a Murder. Also very important to me, because I am a child of the 90s, and he was in some memorable films when I was a kid. Starring in this movie as well is Walter Matthau. You may know Walter Matthau from The Odd Couple, the film, not the sitcom, The Bad News Bears, The Fortune Cookie, where he won an Academy Award for his performance, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Grumpy Old Men. With that out of the way, let's talk about what the movie's about. So basically, the film opens up with Patricia Neal, who plays a character named Marcia Jeffries. She has a radio show called A Face in the Crowd, where she just goes around and finds complete strangers and asks them to sing or speak into the microphone. And she ends up in a jail in Arkansas, and she finds a man who is arrested for drunken and disorderly conduct. And she has him sing, and she gives him the stage name, Lonesome Rhodes. Basically, he's so charismatic and likable, on the microphone, that he ends up getting a radio show, and this radio show gets him super popular, and he starts changing a little bit. You can see him starting to play around with manipulating the masses. And from that radio show, he then goes on and gets a TV show, and that is broadcasted all in the Tennessee area. And he gets bigger and bigger and more powerful. Then he even starts getting sponsorships. He deals with a New York City ad agency, and he gets huge. He's basically like nationwide by this point. He becomes a very distasteful and unsavory person. And you see, as this movie goes on, you could see as he is a poor man who really doesn't want anything but just wants to play his guitar and have a few drinks and have a good time, to this man who's almost sitting on this ivory tower that wields this power and yearns for this power. And by the end, he becomes this monster. And the character Marcia Jeffries recognizes that Lonesome Rhodes is a monster, an absolute monster, and he needs to be stopped. So she decides to let the entire world, or the entire country, know just the man that Lonesome Rhodes really is. She turns on his microphone feed when he thinks his microphone is off, and he's saying some very distasteful, terrible things about the general public, about his audience, his fans. This ruins his career. He falls apart, he loses his power, he loses his status, he loses his show. And the film actually ends with this monologue by Walter Matthau.
Suppose I tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. You're going to be back in television, only it won't be quite the same as it was before. There'll be a reasonable cooling off period, and then somebody will say, why don't we try him again? If people's memories aren't too long, oh, you'll have a show. Then a couple of new fellas will come along, and pretty soon a lot of your fans will be flocking around them. And then one day somebody will ask, whatever happened to, what's his name? He was famous. How can we forget a name like that?
Then the movie ends. So as I was saying, the big, I guess, story arc in this film is you're watching this man who has nothing, doesn't really want anything. He just wants to drink, have a good time, and play his guitar. He caves, he sings his song, and people love him. And he actually gets offered to do the radio show. Marcia Jeffries, she tracks him down, she drives and finds him on the side of the road. And he doesn't even want to get in the car. He was planning on traveling with his friend somewhere, but she eventually talks him into doing it. And at first he wasn't really a big fan of it. And he started doing it. And you can start seeing this man changing. You see this man, he starts noticing that his words have power. And that people are actually liking what he's saying, and that he actually can manipulate people.
How does it feel?
How does what feel?
Well, just saying anything comes into your head and being able to sway people like this.
Yeah, I guess I can. Yeah, I guess I can.
And you could see that he starts changing. He eventually gets so successful that he gets a TV show offer.
You want me to come on your TV in Memphis? $500 a week, huh? Now, if I got to take leave of these good folks, why, I'd rather try it gratis, for nothing for a couple of weeks. But now, if we find we get along, you make it, $1,000 a week? Yeah, you get the idea.
And he gets it. He gets the deal, and he does it. And you can see he has that smirk on his face, like, I pulled this from you. I managed to take the wheel in this situation, and you want me? You get me for this price. I decide what the price is. You don't decide what the price is, I decide the prices. And he goes on and does television. And it's then, after this point, the character Lonesome Rhodes then goes down a path of this, of being this unsavory person who is taking power, grabbing power, manipulating people, and bending everything to his whim. And as he goes down this road, he starts getting bigger and bigger. Basically, what you're seeing is for this whole movie is each scene, he just gets larger and larger and larger, and his sphere of influence gets bigger and bigger and bigger. He goes up to New York, he goes to an ad agency, and he controls that room. You know, the whole idea of like the ad man in the 50s, they were like sharks, and they wield power. The ad men really wielded power back then. So he walked in there, and he won that room over. He controlled that room. And from there, it gets bigger and bigger. He has CEOs that talk to him, millionaires that talk to him. He gets taken under the wing by a very rich gentleman. And in the end, he starts actually talking to politicians. He meets a senator. He is then given an opportunity to coach this senator who wants to ultimately run for president of the United States. And he basically says, this is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to show yourself. Just each and every step along the way, his sphere of influence gets bigger and bigger and bigger. To eventually that it just like implodes on itself. But that's what happens here. He just gets more and more and more powerful. And you can see he just turns uglier and uglier as the movie goes on, to the point when he's actually coaching this senator of what to say to try to win the people, because he ultimately wants to be president, this guy. And so by that point, that he's all the way, basically almost at the top of his sphere of influence. He is a very, very ugly person. The scene right after he coaches the senator he tells the very rich and powerful man who took him under his wing and kind of showed him about like how to wield real power. He told him to shut up.
I don't know anyone in the country who could have won the senator the way you did tonight. It was a brilliant
Shut
piece
up,
of...
will you? I'm thinking.
It shows that he was so ugly that he even started making an enemy of the man who took him in and embraced him and showed him the ways of how he can manipulate people. Another thing with this movie is that Andy Griffith's performance is amazing. His performance is so powerful that he plays this man, this broken man, that, you know, traveling through this journey of getting bigger and more powerful and more successful. And he plays a single person, this one person, but you feel like you're watching a movie starring two different people. Because you have this man, Lonesome Rhodes, who is this like insecure man who seeks attention. And once the camera comes on him, he changes instantly. He becomes likable. He knows how to like work a crowd. And Andy Griffith does a really good job making you see the two faces of this man. He's basically a man with two faces, when the camera is on him and when the camera is off him. And you get to see that it feels like you're watching two different actors, but it's really one person. And you're seeing this nasty side, this nasty man, this man that says and does unsavory things, and then you see what the general public sees. A great example of this is actually, you know, there's some easy ones to point out. There's like the scene when they're going to Tennessee. He goes up on the train, into the train, waves goodbye to the town, and then he turns around and says something nasty or not very nice about the townsfolks. And Marcia looks at him, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm just joking." And then, you know, she's like, "Oh, ha ha ha," right? That's actually the easy one to point out. And the other example of this is actually at the end of the movie. It's Lonesome Rhodes does his show. The show is over. He's hanging out. The credits are rolling. His microphone feed is off. The microphone's still on, but the feed is no longer being fed in. That volume is down, and you're just hearing music and the credits rolling. What you saw for like 30 minutes or an hour, how long his show was this one man, Lonesome Rhodes. Then the second, just once the credits roll, he starts saying rather distasteful things about the general public. He easily takes off the mask that is Lonesome Rhodes. He has two faces. He's a man with two faces. One is the real man, that is the drunk person in the jail cell at the beginning of the movie. And the other one is Lonesome Rhodes that has a mask on. And so what he does is he takes off that mask instantly. He easily takes it off in a matter of a second. Once he knows his mic feed is no longer being fed into the control room, he then turns into his regular self and he starts talking down to the general public, saying rather unsavory things to his fans, the people that actually give him money and give him recognition. He talks down to them. He says terrible things about them. And it's like that. You see instantly the Lonesome Rhodes man, then second the microphone feed is gone, you see that he takes off the mask and you see this other person. So Andy Griffith, again, he does this really amazing performance of balancing this charismatic man when the microphone and the cameras are on him, and then the second it's off, this man that you don't really want to have a conversation with, you don't want to be around. And he just does this amazing performance doing that. Also, Patricia Neal, who plays Marcia Jeffries in the movie, does an amazing job. So, as we were saying that Andy Griffith does this wonderful performance of basically playing like two faces at the same time. Patricia Neal, her character, Marcia, she plays this character that gave him the keys to the palace, gave him his power, and she saw him start changing, but she was still so smitten by him. It wasn't until he asked her to marry him, and she said yes. And then she finds out that he was once already married. So what happens is he promises her that he will fly to whatever location that they got married, and they will get the divorce. He will get the divorce papers and be able to end that marriage and then marry her. And she believes him. He flies away. He is gone. He is actually judging a pageant, a beauty pageant, or like a talent show. And he meets Lee Remick's character, Betty Lou, who's a 17-year-old kid who is absolutely obsessed with him, one of his hugest fans. And then he goes and ends up marrying her. And you're treated to this sort of heartbreaking, this really complex scene. A lot is going on there. It's not just a scene of her going to the airport and understanding that he has been manipulating her, that he's lying to her, and her heart being broken. There's actually a lot more going on in that scene. So what you're seeing is the plane comes in, all the press and the crowds and the fans are all there, everyone's screaming, Marsha squishing through the crowds of the people to get to the front, because Lonesome Rhodes comes out of the plane, and he has a new wife. He has a wife on his arm. It's that 17-year-old girl. And you see at that moment, it's a matter of perception in terms of like which mask is being worn right now. Because technically both masks in this scene are actually being worn at the same exact time. Through Marsha's eyes, she's seeing him without his mask on, without his Lonesome Rhodes mask on. And the entire crowd, everyone else, including his new wife, sees him with his Lonesome Rhodes mask on. So it's actually really interesting, really complex scene. And this just shows great directing by Elia Kazan, where you have a scene that plays pretty straightforward, right? There's nothing crazy going on in that scene. But because of the way the story has gone and the way the trajectory each character has gone, the scene is playing out in two different ways at the exact same time. And after that scene, he still continues to try to manipulate her. He attempts to manipulate her again. He acts really sad and sorry and says that I was scared to marry you. I was frightened by this idea of marrying you. And he offers to give her 10% of all his earnings, which she should have been getting that much already. And this is his attempt to still control the situation because he knows she still has power over him. She still controls the show. So he tries to keep manipulating so he gets what he wants. So what happens is Marsha is heartbroken. He ended up marrying someone who fed into his ego, someone that gave him complete and unconditional affection and worship, really worship. And he understood that Marsha really did have the wheel of his career, because you see later on, you see at the end of the movie, Marsha does not partake in him doing his show. So he goes to the studio and Marsha's not there. No one knows what to do. Marsha ran the show. Literally no one knows what to do. And Lonesome Rhodes was furious. He was like, we can't, like, I could do it. We could do it. Like, it can't be, how hard can this be? He pulls everything together and makes the show without her. But you see, that everyone sees that just how important Marsha was to him and to his actual career. And he knew that. That's why he was constantly manipulating her. So he does that, and that ultimately leads to his downfall. She eventually shows up, and the show's over, the credits are rolling, and that's the moment when she was like, I made this man, I made this person, I made Lonesome Rhodes, who he is. I made him, I can destroy him, he should be destroyed, he is a monster. People should know what kind of person Lonesome Rhodes really is. And she does just that. She turns his mic on during the credits, and the public, his fans, hear just what kind of person he actually is. So the events that happened at the TV studio where everyone saw him for who he is, and he lost all his power. He lost his fans, like instantly. He lost his fans, he lost his power, he lost his TV show, and he's back in his apartment at his penthouse apartment, sitting in his ivory tower, and he's a broken man. He's completely lost it. He desperately is trying to get that feeling of being loved and being recognized and being desired and cheered. He has his friends play a applause machine, and he just stands up on the balcony area or that upper part of the penthouse, just standing on the second floor like he's up on a stage, and he pretends he's back where he was, but it's all fake. There's no more power. He's completely lost it. And the movie ends with Marcia telling him she's the one that did it, and he's like really broken by that point, and he completely loses it. And Walter Matthau basically has this monologue where he's like, you'll be back, maybe not as powerful, as popular as you were. People have a short memory. You know, you will be back in another form. And basically this monologue is saying that Lonesome Rhodes would be back. There will be doors that open for you. There will be producers. There will be assistants that will help you make that money because they want to make money. Another character in this movie is the character Joey, played by Anthony Franciosa. He is Lonesome Rhodes' assistant who gravitates towards Lonesome Rhodes. He's also a not very nice person. He's a man wearing a mask too. And he's actually a very important character in the film because the way that Lonesome Rhodes was manipulating and playing Marcia, this guy Joey was doing just that to Lonesome Rhodes. He was just this like assistant and basically broke the rules and was just as like mischievous as Lonesome Rhodes and got him what he wanted. He got him a meeting up in New York City with the ad agency. He got him more and more power, and Joey rode Lonesome Rhodes' coattails as he fed him the ability to give him more and more power. He rode Lonesome Rhodes' coattails. And ultimately, he was wearing a mask too. He manipulated him, and in the end, he played him just the way Lonesome Rhodes was playing Marcia. Joey went and got 51% of the company, slept with Lonesome Rhodes' wife. This moment actually is there's a few moments, but this is one of the chips in the persona of what Lonesome Rhodes is. It's starting to crack a bit. The man got 51% of the company, slept with Lonesome Rhodes' wife, and there's nothing he could do about it. Lonesome Rhodes was helpless in that situation. He was completely used, and it was shown just how much he was used by this man that he trusted. This person who was a no one. Joey was a no one. Just the way Marcia picked up a nobody and made him into a somebody, Lonesome Rhodes met this guy Joey, who was an assistant, who was in his eyes a nobody. And in his eyes, Joey, even though Joey made himself into a somebody, Lonesome Rhodes absolutely viewed himself as making Joey into a somebody. And this somebody, this Joey, then used Lonesome Rhodes and manipulated him and ultimately hurt him severely, much of the way that Lonesome Rhodes did to Marcia. So that's the film, A Face in the Crowd. It raises a lot of questions, and honestly, I think this movie goes beyond celebrity worship culture. I think this movie goes beyond the idea of just media personalities wielding all these power. The name of the movie is called A Face in the Crowd. And I think this movie has that story in it, because it does, very much so. But I think this movie is also a cautionary tale for all of us. We are all a face in the crowd. Lonesome Rhodes was a complete nobody, turned into a somebody, and lost himself. This movie raises the question, if you become a celebrity or someone with wealth or power or someone with great influence, and when that happens, that mask changes. You don't only become just a regular face in the crowd. That mask becomes a very recognizable face, or it becomes a face that influences people. But the person behind that mask is still you. So when that mask changes, will you keep your moral compass? Will you stay the person you are? Or will it change you? It's something to think about. So that's why I wanted to just sit down real quick and talk to you about this film, because this film's really good. And it's very much ahead of its time. It was made back in 1957, and the film is still relevant today. So if you've seen it already, I recommend you go and watch it again. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend absolutely that you watch A Face in the Crowd. Bye.